Silicone. It's the magic potion for enhancing sex. These inventors are using it to create the ultimate in erotic toys, the maximum in cleavage enhancement, and the sexiest of lifelike dolls.
He's enchanted by the magic charm that's yours alone when, in exquisite form, the lady is you.
The bra, a garment designed to make a woman feel more sexy and give her that uplifting feeling. And now, with the help of modern science, it can enhance the bust like never before.
We'll see the difference.
This is the Ultimo, high-tech, the world's first ever silicone-filled bra. Gravity-defying, cleavage-enhancing brainchild of Scottish entrepreneur Michelle Mone.
Well, I think that women, want to feel sexy, not for just their partners, but themselves, because it makes you feel so much better. Michelle is wearing our gel-filled bra at the moment. This is the one with removable gel. The way the gel works is when you put it inside the cup, you pull the breasts inwards and upwards. The gel sinks to the side where the gaps are, and it moulds and sets to your shape, giving a dramatic cleavage, but it also feels very, very comfortable.
The Ultimo is Michelle's flagship brand, a product that defies Isaac Newton's law of gravity, floating the breasts towards heaven and making mountains out of molehills.
It automatically forms. I mean, I came out to about here when I had it on. It was fantastic.
The bra's unique design has expanded the possibilities of cleavage for women of all shapes and sizes, making a small size A look a lot more substantial.
Ultimo's not just for women with small breasts. It's also for women with heavy breasts that really sag. And also, women who have had breast surgery. You don't instantly get a cleavage with breast surgery. They tend to sit like two balls. You need to push them up and push them in together.
The orders were coming in fast and furious. And with its gel technology, it's quickly becoming a European legend, just like its celebrity inventor. And Michelle is savoring her newfound success. The road up from her tough working class background in Glasgow hasn't been easy.
My father got confined to a wheelchair due to a spinal disease. So I left school at 15 and no one would give me a job. So I was about 4 stone lighter. I don't know what that is in pounds in America and Canada. Lighter than I am now, 5'11", so I did some fashion modelling.
At 20, she landed a top job with Labatt's Beer, who was starting a marketing push in the UK. But even though she got laid off only a few years later, she wasn't singing the blues. The pink slip had a silver lining.
They offered me a massive redundancy package, which I still think to this day they're going to come back and ask for half of it back.
It wasn't so much necessity that propelled Michelle to design her masterpiece. It was a bra from hell she wore to a dinner dance 2 weeks after her layoff.
It was really lumpy and bumpy and it just was horrible. And I thought, is this what women have to do to try and get a cleavage? Is the only way surgery? Surely there must be another way.
The Labatt's redundancy paved the way for the Ultimo to take shape. But Michelle soon discovered that creating a head-turning bust line was no easy task.
It may look like a simple article of clothing, but in fact, there's a lot of engineering that goes into the design of a bra.
Bridge building and bra design, strangely, have a lot in common. Both are wonders of suspension. And when it comes to uplift, there's all manner of forces other than gravity to take into account. Bra design presents an even bigger challenge than bridges, because breasts are a semi-solid mass that come in all shapes and sizes.
They can weigh as much as 10 pounds or as little as 8 ounces. They can be, round like melons or shaped more like pears or even eggplants.
Howard Hughes, the eccentric millionaire inventor, even tried his hand at bra design to flaunt the cleavage of the already super-endowed Jane Russell in the movie The Outlaw. History tells us he failed.
And apparently this has been lost to history. We don't have a copy of this bra, but Jane Russell claims that she never actually wore it. She ended up wearing her own bra and just kind of filling out with Kleenex.
Yesterday's matinee idols may have padded their bras with Kleenex, socks, or whatever would do the trick. But today's women want the uplift with a, natural feel.
I thought it would be quite easy to try and get an ingredient that would feel like breast tissue, that would work in the same way as breast tissue, feel natural, it would bounce when you would jump up and down and not sit there like foam, hard and horrible. So we began to try different ingredients. That's when my husband Michael got involved.
We decided that a liquid gel sac inside the bra was what was going to work. And we tried all sorts of different fillings, but we eventually came across using the liquid silicone because it mimics the movement of breast tissue and therefore looks very, very realistic.
Silicone is a chemical compound which is created from silicon, a common natural substance. Silicone has been the magic potion for perkier breasts since World War II, when it first became popular in Japan.
Silicone has been around for probably 100 years. It wasn't until right after World War II that it found its way into women's breasts. Basically, in Japan, in Yokohama, silicone was disappearing off the docks.
Typically, Japanese courtesans injected it directly into their breasts to attract American GIs, searching for more comely Jane Russell lookalikes. By the 60s, silicone took the form of the now notorious breast implants, a mother lode for plastic surgeons. But how would it work inside a bra? That was the question. And Michelle would invest her life savings to find the answer. Michelle and Michael Mohn had settled on silicone as the ideal substance for their new bras. Gentle on the female form, tough on plastic surgeons. Silicone is flexible, durable, and resistant to moisture and aging, but it can be toxic with prolonged contact. The exact formula for the silicone would require long and rigorous testing, and to fund the development, the Mohns had to put up their house as security.
Yes, we worked with a lab to test the silicone to make sure that no disasters would happen. That you were sitting in an aeroplane and suddenly everyone had gel in their face. Test that it wouldn't grow fungus inside the bra, to make sure it wouldn't go on fire, to make sure it wasn't harmful at all if it burst.
So we'd bake them in ovens up to the extent that we would destroy the film, but there'd be no problem with the silicone catching fire, and also trying to freeze them. Probably the most amusing test that we did on the bras was for its bursting strength. If you throw the silicone gel sacks out of something that's 20 stories high and it hits the pavement and doesn't break, then you know that it can withstand the rigours of a night at the disco. Obviously, people are wearing these out for a night of fun in the town. If someone with amorous intentions got a wee bit over-exuberant, that it wasn't going to burst the gel sacks and cause a problem. So we had to make sure that the bursting strength was able to withstand more than its fair share of grappling.
You might not think that a mere bra would require such a high level of quality control. But Michelle makes sure the Ultimo will never deflate a woman's image on an evening out.
But it was quite funny because I picked up one of the newspapers one morning and it said that this lady was standing at the bus stop waiting on a bus, and suddenly her bra, the cups, went into 2 blocks of ice. And I thought, oh my goodness, that better not be my bra. And it wasn't. It was one of the big manufacturers that had brought out a water bra. And it was very, very cold that day.
But the squashy silicone outplants came through the tests with flying colors, and the Ultimo bra was launched in the spring of 1999 to rave reviews. On the first day alone, thousands of Ultimos flew off the shelves of Selfridges, the top London store. The oohs and ahs of delighted customers could be heard all the way to Glasgow.
I don't think their competitors are taking them that seriously, and I think they'll be in for a bit of a shock.
So I'm just like so stunned. If you look in my office, my own room, it's full of cards from happy customers. Hi, Robert. And I just think, you know, this bra has really changed people's lives.
The Ultimo even made it onto the big screen, landing a supporting role in Erin Brockovich, where, sported by Julia Roberts, it did exactly what it was designed to do.
I had a phone call saying that, you know, what do you think of Julia Roberts wearing your bra? And Erin Brockovich, I think it was from the New York Times. I said, my goodness, that's incredible. After that, we launched in Saks Fifth Avenue in New York. And it was just, you know, the icing on the cake.
Ultimo was now turning over a multi-million-dollar inventory. Success seemed assured. But then the company hit a few bumps. Out of the blue, one store canceled its order. Next, the bank was calling in its overdraft.
The banks are just screwing us about. They've pulled our overdraft away from us. And a company that's going from 300,000 to nearly 4 million and who's going to do about 10 million this year is just lunacy. I mean, we don't need them, basically. And anyone that gets in my way now, they'll just have to move aside.
Michelle went back to the drawing board and came up with a new line of lingerie, as well as a change of strategy. Ultimo.co.uk. The online child was born. UK's answer to Victoria's Secret.
And within 6 weeks, we gained 50,000 customers through our website, and the stores wanted us back again. And now we've gone from one style to, you know, over 100.
Michelle has recently launched her second invention, a backless, cleavage-enhancing bra.
Sophie is wearing our newest invention, which is the Ultimo body. So it's basically got removable gel, clear straps, and if Sophie turns round the back, it cuts right down to the tip of her bottom, so there's no back of a bra whatsoever. Now, the benefit of this is when you're wearing a dress cut right down to the tip of your bottom, you can wear a dress that's completely backless, but still you get this cleavage at the front, and that was very, very difficult to try and achieve.
This reality-defying design was created at the request of a growing number of Michelle's celebrity clientele.
It's, you know, quite incredible. You'll be going to the movies and sitting watching them on the big screen and saying, I spoke to her yesterday, or I'm fitting her next week.
And now Michelle is using her celebrity connections for a good cause.
We've got Rod Stewart flying in from LA, Penny Lancaster's coming with Rod, of course. We've got really big pop groups. The Rolling Stones are playing the next night in Glasgow, so hopefully they'll come. We're going to invite them. And we want to raise, you know, hopefully over a 6-figure sum for breast cancer campaign. You think you'd cope with it? Okay, bye. And it's pretty incredible that, you know, you've gone from a nothing, scrimping and scraping, trying to survive, to now becoming a huge star and mixing with all these celebrities. I always go by Rabbie Burns, our famous Scottish poet. If at first you don't succeed, try again. And that's all I do, day in, day out.
Texas Annie had a big fat fanny and she drove a black sedan. She had Benoit balls in her overalls and a trunk full of contraband. And when the fog was thick, she'd pack her dicks and sneak across the county line. 'Cause in Texas, any tool for masturbation is a crime. Hard living and promiscuous.
Looking for a little something to perk up your love life? Vibrators, nimble thimbles, floggers, rabbit pearls. If you've seen it on Sex and the City, you'll find it here at this friendly neighborhood shop. This is Women's Wear, a family business created and owned by Jana Sylvester and Otter Lewis.
We're a mom and pop shop with conflicting menstrual cycles.
Well, maybe a mom and mom shop. Jana and Otter are life partners who believe in the healing power of sexual adventure. They're like evangelists for sex toys, missionaries for new positions.
It's just like everything else that we do. You put on shoes that are for walking so you can walk farther, and why shouldn't you add things to how you're being sexual so that you can do it in a different position or twice as long or in a different way?
Here, you can buy hundreds of quality toys to tickle your fancy and find your magical G-spot. Jana and Otter also offer their own line of specialized products that they've designed and manufactured under the Women's Wear label.
Women's Wear has developed first the clit lane, then the nimble thimble, which is an extension of the clitoral pad just for the clitoral stimulation. There's the butt really, that is an anal toy for either men or women. The newest product is the ring-a-ding. That's a couple's toy. It works specifically during basic missionary intercourse.
It's just like your taste buds are so different in your mouth, you know, or it's the same with your vagina, you know, and you really can't tell what's going to be right for someone. You just have to ask them a lot of leading questions.
Hi, can I help you?
Hi.
I'm looking for a vibrator.
Otter is assisting a customer who's ventured out to find something to help her attain the Big O. Studies over the years indicate that roughly 8 out of 10 women can't reach orgasm from vaginal stimulation alone. They need direct clitoral stimulation.
You're looking at 4 types of stimulation to choose from. It's going to be clitoral, penetrative, something that would work for either or a combination of both.
I am interested in something that would do both. We have genitals and they work in a certain way. And you can approach it as something that's pornographic, and you can sell products based on people's shame, or you can do what Women's Wear has done, which is approach sex toys and sex toy development as something that has to do with our biology.
Jana and Otter, like industrial designers for cars, create blueprints of the dildos to address the physical demands of the female body. These unusually shaped dildos with grape, licorice, and bubblegum swirls may look a little odd, but they're created for specific desired effects. One of their most popular designs is the clit lane.
The vaginal canal has all of the pubic nervous system is on the upper wall of the vagina, so the clit lane is designed to stroke up and across the pubic nervous system. Well, a lot of people know that as the G-spot.
We really feel that toys can be visually appealing and really effective without looking like severed limbs, without looking like here's a penis but there's no man attached to it.
Like many great inventors, Jana gets some of her best ideas in the wee small hours. Her partner Otter then takes over as the design department.
Okay, bye.
Okay, so 4 o'clock in the morning, I have an idea.
Of course.
This is what I'm thinking. You can make this. Otter has a design background. She's the person who can take any challenge and adapt what she's presented with into something that's economical, feasible, works exactly like it's supposed to.
Is that little tiny vibrator in
Yeah,
there?
that's that new
Oh,
mini
that's clever.
vibrator. And horizontally instead of vertically.
Right, of course. Makes sense.
So ring-a-ding was what came up at that time in the morning.
It'll ring her bells.
Exactly.
It starts with an idea of what do we want it to do and what's the anatomy of that, how is it driven, and then it's tactile. How does it feel? If I feel this, is it better if it's smooth or if it's textured? So this is what I've done from your original drawing of your midnight inspiration. I've got a nice soft silicone, so it's going to be really stretchy and have a big opening, so it'll work both around the testicle and the penis.
So the ring is soft and pliable, so it's comfortable on the male part of the coupling. And then the ring, ding part, the bell-shaped part, is for the clitoris contact. So when you're having missionary intercourse, your partner isn't apologizing for smashing something hard and plastic against your pubic mound.
Now bring on the product testers. In this case, the company's retail manager, Cass King, and very happy husband, John Woods, whose volunteer work makes an unusual addition to his resume.
Stretchy, comfortable, one size fits all. Soft and plushy for the clitoris.
Yeah, it looks really different. These nubs are really soft. It makes a huge difference. You know, if they're too big or too hard, it makes you too sensitive. It's like trying to ride a hairbrush or something, you know? It's really like, oh, too terrible. This looks like it also might be big enough to be worn right around the testicles.
Which is the point. That's how they're supposed to work.
It's lovely.
It's lovely. It's better than a diamond. And take it home and test it, but don't be late for work.
Okay. Come on, honey, we have homework.
John's a good sport and doesn't complain about the fringe benefits of his partner's profession.
I've had roommates who've worked at cheesecake places and they'll come home with like, great big, slices of amazing cheesecake. Nothing compares to having a partner who works in a sex toy store. No, nothing.
Maybe instead of siestas, we should introduce the afternoon Jill and Jack off.
'Cause you can't buy dildo in Texas. We don't touch ourselves down there around here, you hear. And it says so in the Bible that a vow will leave you liable for a prison term of 27 years.
Since they opened their flagship store and web catalog in 1995, women's wear business has grown over 1,000%. These women are dedicated to making high-quality dildos and spend most of their waking hours thinking about sex. The original idea for women's wear came to Jana in her other life as a corporate tax lawyer.
I had a time in my life where I was sick. I had a tumor in my uterus, and I was still doing the practice and being sick at the same time, coming up against all of the different things in the medical profession, assumptions about women and hysterectomies and women's sexuality. It gelled for me that I was going to do a business that changed the way our society views women's sexuality.
Then she met Otter Lewis, whose background was a mixture of design, making puppets, and electronic sales. It was a match made in heaven and on the drawing board. Together, they've certainly pushed a few boundaries, but in other areas, they're just plain old-fashioned and proud of it. Take vibrators, for instance.
We're trying to bring vibrators back to the early roots, which was just a social acceptance of being sexual and being able to buy a device for orgasm the same way you bought small kitchen appliances. The earliest Eaton's catalogs had vibrators along with the washing boards and men's shoes and ladies' home devices.
Getting good vibrations from a medical doctor was a treatment for hysteria, a commonly diagnosed female complaint of the Victorian era.
And the symptoms of being non-orgasmic were diagnosed as being hysteria. And a device that produced a lot of tactile stimulation on the genitals was developed by the medical profession for the treatment.
I guess there's quite an underground among women who would talk about which were the good doctors to go to that were really good at their craft. When they started making household appliances powered by electricity, the fifth one was the vibrator, behind only the tea kettle and the toaster and the sewing machine and a fan.
Vibrators went underground during the Prohibition years and were adopted by the porn industry. Sex toys have never really recovered from the stigma of being associated with sleaze. Not to mention, most dildos at XXX stores are the wrong shape for women.
They are long, rigid, there's no mobility at all. There's nothing to make any type of clitoral contact. They just go off into the stratosphere. And they're much longer than this, so usually 2 to 7 inches, depending on whether you're buying the bigger, or biggest. That's not how women work.
The other problem with XXX toys is the lack of quality control.
There were sex toys that were not appropriate for use in sex. They were not appropriate for use inside or on the body because the material was of actually an unhealthy quality.
The irony, the chemicals used to soften the rubbers in these products are banned for use in children and dog chew toys, but you can use it in a sexual product.
They're like the Ebert and Roper of the sex toy trade.
The packaging, but people are so gullible because they think oral sex, a tongue, that would be a good product.
I like oral sex.
If your partner's starting to come at you with this on your honeymoon, you're gonna be wondering, try that on your delicates.
It's abrasive.
It's very abrasive.
And oh yeah.
4D cell, so you can barely
it weighs a ton.
Hold the thing up.
You can use it to like sand your woodwork.
It's good for a surprise.
What do you think of this?
Thumbs down.
Thumbs down. What about the magic cream?
Rub that on your genitals and it'll invoke an orgasm in 3 minutes.
Are you supposed to rub it in for 20 minutes?
Yeah, you're supposed to rub vigorously, and that's what activates the ingredients. Well, the only active ingredient in most of them is menthol, so it's like putting Vicks Vapor Rub.
Is that not a good idea?
Not.
What about Tiger Balm?
That one's better. So you get a little tingly feeling, but then you're in trouble. Thumbs up to rubbing vigorously.
Right on.
Thumbs down to the cream.
Thumbs down. So what about the very realistic feeling cyber skin?
Realistic if you've just come from a chemical peel.
Oh, the worst one, like you'd have a lawsuit going. This thing is just disgusting. Look at how it's molded in here too.
Impossible to clean.
Well, okay, you know what it's got going for it? You could adhere it to a surface. This one then, thumbs down. It's like all thumbs down.
Jana and Otter know they can build a better, more attractive dildo. Quality guaranteed. It goes into production at Ecstasy Effects. Silicone is the magic substance, but it's a tricky product to work with.
Silicone has to be cast in a vacuum. You can't have air bubbles. You have to be able to pull it out of the mold without it tearing. And so these ideas like in the clit lane with having a back pad that extends past the toy or the hollow for the vibrator are technically really challenging.
This is the clit lane mold. It's being filled almost to the top, and the hot liquid silicone is left to harden.
There's a little vent in the mold so that the air can escape as the silicone goes in, but where's the vent going to be so that it doesn't become an impurity on the shaft or the head of the toy? So you need vents, but you need to consider where they're going to be placed.
Sometimes, with the best will in the world, the dildos are duds. Now, guys, avert your gaze. It's time for a Fargo-style recycling, guaranteed to make you squirm. Ouch! But usually, the finished product is picture perfect. That is, if you can get the sucker out of the mold.
That reverse mold needs to be flexible and pliable enough that when you pour the silicone in, you can pull it out. Especially if you're casting products that have a backwards curve where it turns back under. It's very satisfying for me to create something and have people respond to it really favorably and that it really works for them. And it's, this is unlike anything I've ever used before. It's great. I feel really good about that.
Now, the majority of women's wear customers are couples looking for that little something extra to spice up their life together.
With partners, we've always felt pretty strongly that those who play together stay together. When you get to a place in your relationship where it becomes quite familiar and maybe it's not as exciting as it used to be. Toys are a great way to add something new into the relationship but still be in the relationship. The world would be a way better place if we all had more orgasms.
And a probe for every asshole in El Paso. 'Cause you can't buy dildo in Texas. We don't touch ourselves down there around here, you hear. And it says so in the Bible that if I believe you're liable for a prison term of 27 years.
Imagine a world where your wildest fantasies could come true, where gorgeous women are created to fulfill your every desire.
I like to invent my artwork. I don't like it to be a copy of somebody. I want it to be like, you know, a standalone creation. You know, I might grab a picture that I see and say, wow, this girl has great lips. I'm gonna take that and see what I can, you know, maybe borrow as an inspiration.
Meet Matt McMullen, the Hugh Hefner of Doll Land. At his warehouse factory in San Marcos, California, he produces a line of silicone playthings for men.
If you come over here, I could show you, you know, sort of what the heads look like, unpainted, unfinished, and then when we're done with them, they look more like this. And you get to pick your eye color that you want, and eyelashes. You know, you go from this to that. Huge difference. We do a tremendous variety, different body, different heads, and we get to see all these different combinations, and you know, there's 5 different skin shades. When you really mathematically figure out how many options are possible, it's astounding.
These are Matt McMullen's love dolls. Silicone sculptures with figures to match any Playboy bunny. And let's be straight, there's no pussyfooting around here. These are designed for sex.
I don't think there's any moral problems with having sex with a doll, any more so than a woman with a vibrator, or a man just strictly masturbating to a fantasy image. It's a device that's used to aid one in sexual gratification. That's all, nothing more.
The dolls are anatomically correct, which means they come with a full set of working orifices.
All the orifices are functional, just like the real thing. Well, except they don't say no in some of the cases where the real thing does. But yeah, it's all anatomically correct. You have in a mouth there's a tongue, and so we make an opening in the mouth and we make a silicone tongue, you know, and the same goes for any other orifice. We just look at what's there anatomically and try to replicate it.
Forget your smooth pickup lines. They won't work here. These dolls aren't cheap dates. They retail for $6,000 US, but will travel anywhere in the world to meet their mostly male clientele, 25% of whom are married. This blonde beauty is on her way to Chile, maybe to a university professor or even a politician who can't chance being with a lover who might kiss and tell. Real doll customers like the product come in all shapes and sizes. Anybody with a fat pocketbook who doesn't mind sleeping with silicone.
There's not really an easy profile of a real doll buyer. You know, I think there's an image that might be summoned into someone's mind, like, God, you know, what kind of person would buy one of these? You know, it's really, like I say, amazingly normal people. The customer can come up with this sort of wish list of, you know, this is my ideal girl, this is my fantasy. Can you guys make it a reality? And that's what we do, is we try to take as much of that list and make it happen and convert it into you know, a silicone replica of what his fantasy is.
Blonde, brunette, big breasts, small hips. You name it, you can have it. But why would someone want rubber instead of the real thing?
You know, there's 2 types of people that would buy these dolls for sex. One type is the people that are attracted to it because it's a doll. It's a fetish in and of itself. And the other side is the people who are pretending it's a real woman. a beautiful woman. Maybe it's a woman that's more beautiful than, you know, anyone they've ever been with or anyone they ever imagined they could be with, and that's what it is for them. There's at least 2,000 real dolls in the world, all over the world. We've shipped everywhere.
But purchasing a love doll is hardly an impulse buy. Custom designed, it could easily take 3 months before a strange-looking parcel arrives at your door. And if by chance you decide you don't really want it, tough. It's non-returnable.
Number one, there's no guarantee, you know, there's no money-back 30-day warranty on the dolls because this is a sex device. We have no way of knowing what, you know, sorts of things could feasibly happen to a doll in the real world. We don't know what people are going to do to them. But they're very well built.
You just put it right over here.
These overgrown Barbies are wildly popular. They're lifelike. They don't need Botox to stay young and beautiful. From a technical standpoint, Matt can do almost anything but make these beauties breathe.
There's as much engineering in the dolls as there is artistic direction and artistic sense. It's very much a combination of disciplines. And, you know, largely what goes inside of a doll is designed to mimic the real function of a human skeleton. You know, when we design a knee joint, it has to be able to do what a real knee joint does. You know, we don't want it to bend backwards. You know, we want it to have the same full range that a knee would have.
The actual design of the doll's flexible metal frame is Matt's trade secret. They may be heavy, but amateur contortionists eat your heart out. With no word of complaint, these beauties will take the most challenging positions of the Kama Sutra in their 90-pound stride.
We try to take it as far as we can.
Freud wouldn't be surprised to learn that Matt's vocation was a result of a teenage fascination with the female form.
I spent a lot of time as a teenager doing a lot of drawing, and so I knew I had a lot of interest in art. Mostly what I did was draw naked women, and I thought it was a phase, but it never ended. I always felt limited by illustration because it was two-dimensional. And I was always trying to create the illusion of 3 dimensions. And when I picked up and tried sculpting for the first time, it was a very natural thing.
You might say that Matt's bevy of beauties was born from the belly of the beast.
Well, this is a mask I actually sculpted years and years ago. We called it Munchies. This concept I came up with is these little guys that were sort of emerging from this guy's head. It was kind of weird.
He learned this art of silicone sculpting through one of his first jobs at a Halloween company, where he was a mold maker and mask sculptor.
Got to play around with all these different latexes and elastomers and, you know, all kinds of rubbers and silicones, and combination of that and, you know, the ongoing body sculptures that I did with women is really, I think, where the seeds were planted for what I'm doing now.
But the real dolls were originally the result of an experiment in interactive art.
My idea was a posable piece of art that somebody could manipulate, you know, go so far as to change the clothing and the hair and, you know, really have an effect on the sculpture itself.
Matt launched a website to document his progress with silicone and the female form. It aroused a lot of interest, but not from art dealers.
The feedback I got was just, you know, tremendously geared toward the sexual side of, you know, the possibilities of what I was doing. And that's, you know, where I made a conscious decision to convert it into a love doll.
Word on the net spread quickly, and pretty soon Matt was pumping them out just as fast as he could make them. Artistic aspirations quickly took second place to commerce.
And I try to make them as ultra-realistic as possible. But the fact that I've gone to the point of making them sexually functional completely basically removes the possibility that they can be considered legitimate art. They're a love doll. They're a sexual device. They're not art. But if I had this exact doll right here, made, you know, to stand in a museum next to a wax replica, people would ooh and ah about how realistic it was. But because it's a love doll, it's looked at differently. Like, ooh, a love doll. It's like, yeah, no big deal. You know, it's a human need, and sometimes you don't have the relationship there.
Meanwhile, Matt continues to push the boundaries with his silicone structures, creating something more and more like a replacement for the female of the species. But what's next on the agenda? Can breeding and babies be that far away?
We're working on an onboard computer for the doll that will have audio and motion that will be triggered by sensory stimulus. You know, someone squeezes the breast, the doll responds, she makes a sound, you know, whether it be, you know, wow, that felt great, or don't do that, you know, I don't like that. Whatever you want her to do, whatever you want her to be, you'll be able to sort of program the responses. And that's where we're headed with it.
But hey, why bother with the real thing when these beautiful dolls are guaranteed never to have a headache and, like the Stepford wives, are always ready for action?
It's not an android. I don't have some scheme to get women out of every household and you know, just have a doll in everybody's closet. You know, it's not like that. It's a device, you know, like anything else that can be used in the pursuit of sexual gratification. Anybody that wants to put anything deeper into it, like, my God, they're going to replace women, please. That's not what this is about. I can't replace real women. No one can. I mean, we're humans. There's like male and female. You know, we breed, we have children. That's life.
Nope, they're just silicone dolls instead of real-life flesh and bone. And they break, especially when they haven't been taken care of. So what happens when a real doll goes bad?
When you bend it, it looks convincing. Normally, breakage of one of our dolls is fairly rare, not impossible. For example, the silicone can tear.
That's what happens when you don't take care of your doll. That's an easy job, no prob.
This is Slade. He's the real doll doctor. He's a practicing silicone surgeon who attaches hands and heads, repairs jaws and knee joints, and anything else on the dolls that needs fixing.
You sat down in the crate for too long, and it creates a pressure crease inside the silicone, and then when that crease is there for an extended period of time, when you open up the doll, then the crease becomes a tear.
This discarded ebony beauty came from a Chicago businessman who, after a quick romp, had second thoughts about the relationship.
Okay, typical male scenario. Sex for a male is a more physical act than it is for a woman as an emotional act. So a guy needs physical stimulation more than he needs anything. His brain gets stimulated. He's looking at the Real Doll website. He sees these creatures. They are amazing looking. They are realistic looking. They're anatomically correct. He's excited. He can't wait. The truck shows up. The doll gets delivered to the front door. The doll comes out of the crate, hits the floor. The guy's done in a matter of 3 minutes. He's waited for 16 weeks to get his doll. He stands up and he's like, what have I done, man? God, I could have bought a car. They need to be moved around and taken care of, basically. You know, it's not just something you can discard, leave, and have it be good.
This is one of Matt's newest creations, a doll with multiple faces to change her look. Although this gives a man a variety of beauties in one body, her suitor soon tired of her, and now she's suffering from chronic neglect.
Like, the skin texture is good here, the skin texture is really thin, and it was like right close to the surface, so I cut out the plastic and I filled it up with a different rubber. I'm putting this patch material over the old patch, and what it's going to end up doing is just kind of smoothing everything out.
Slade, like Matt, is a sculptor, which is how he got his start in this line of work.
I spoke with Matt a few times. I sent him a sculpture that I made and said I'm an artist too, and then when I sent them the sculpture, they became interested in me as an artist.
In January of 2000, he was honored to have the opportunity of sculpting the original form for one of Matt's latest wonders, the male doll.
They had had lots and lots of inquiries and emails and calls and when are you going to make a male doll? Matt had many women, many female dolls, lots of different faces, lots of different body styles, but no male doll.
They come in 4 different styles of genitalia: stiff, stiffer, and stiffest, as well as the droopy.
From my understanding, it is mostly men buying the male doll, not women. As a woman, you better have some kind of beefy arms to be able to move it around. They are working on a new foam core that makes the doll much lighter, but again, the weight is quite a lot. And the male doll himself, he probably weighs like 120 pounds or something. So if you had a woman that was this size trying to move around a male doll, she needs her boyfriend to help. You know, it's a heavy doll. I love each and every one that I get in. I'm always glad to have a new face. I'm always glad to have a new doll. I'm always glad to see them go. I learned many years ago from a friend who owned a car dealership. This is what I do for a living, so I don't get attached to my product.
Jenny. Nice. And oh, look at that. Her face is beautiful. Wowie. Nice. Amanda. This is for the faceless doll. So how grand is that? She's pretty sexy. Can you see the ridges in her mouth?
She's beautiful. She is wonderful. She's perfect. This is the top of the line doll right here with the removable facial system and the newest no seam body and everything. She's perfect. Matt's got a fascination for his own product. He loves his own product. And, you know, as a creator and as an artist, we get involved with something that we're creating and something that we're doing. It begins to really consume us. So Matt is always working on trying to better his product.
I want people to look at what I do and appreciate it, whether it's for them or not. That's one thing. So I try to keep striving for making it even, you know, more astoundingly realistic for people to just be like, whoa, you know, that's amazing.